Hi, welcome to Rise the podcast. And our guest today is the lovely and talented Jennifer Green. Jennifer's an educator, an author, a speaker, and does a lot in the area of the environment and nature and tapping into the magic of Mother Earth as well. And she's just a multi-talented, multifaceted woman. And Rise, the podcast, of course, is about, rise up, impact socially aware entrepreneurs. And Jennifer is just that. She embodies the spirit of the name of this podcast. And if you haven't, if you've been living under a rock these days, you probably won't know what's been happening in the news with some shootings, one in Buffalo, one in Texas last week. That really has got everybody thinking and talking about not just the element of violence and guns, but it's really about mental health and our youth. And it's estimated that 10 to 20% of Canadian youth are affected by mental health issues or a disorder. And also that 5% of male youth and 12% of female youth aged 12 to 19 have experienced some major depressive episode. Add to it the current situation we've all been living through for the past 2+ years, and that has not helped at all. So Jennifer, I think there's an epidemic of mental health among youth, and I think it's leading to what happened in Texas and in Buffalo, New York recently. I think it's leading to that. I think the idea of technology, having your head into the cell phone or gaming. Gaming is a lot of violent war games that go on and killing, and those images are what young people are tapping into. Even the music sometimes, the lyrics are really can be quite violent and towards one another, especially towards women. So what, as a former teacher, I guess my first question to you is, what would you like to see change in the school system, first of all, in terms of really helping to get our kids away from tech and into more connection, and be that spiritual connection, a connection to Mother Earth or a connection to each other?
Well, first off, I want to just thank you so much for having me back on your show. It is such an honor
Oh
to
yeah,
be
you're a two-time guest.
it is such an honor to be able to be here and discuss such an important topic in terms of supporting our global family. So I just wanted to start by saying that, and then there's so much to share. And then the next
Mhm.
thing is I'm actually still with teaching, so I haven't left completely. I'm on sabbatical right now and working on some great projects to further support children and youth because of the opportunities I've been able to have outside the classroom. And again, another blessing that not many people might have the opportunity to do. So I felt a calling to really, step up, especially during COVID, to be able to make greater impact in those areas. Having said that, yes, the stats are alarming. They always have been. Like there have been tons of studies done both in the US that I'm aware of as well as Canada that have talked about this alarming increase of stress and anxiety in children and youth over time. But as you said, when COVID hit, that was just, a whole new wonderful layer of adventures that we've had to deal with, the parents, the educators, communities in general, and of course how this has impacted and affected children and youth. um, Most recent study that I did that Sick Kids actually did, and it's an ongoing study of children uh, through COVID uh, they found some interesting facts about, again, the stress, that how it's impacted children, and the fact that children are spending more time on technology more than ever is one of
Mhm.
the big elements of how this is impacting their well-being overall. And you just sort of, alluded to that in the introduction about how technology can be, play a factor in that. And absolutely, we're finding that um, technology, too much of it, kind of creates this disassociation, if you will, from reality, from that actual mindful way of living, if you will. And that's where that mindfulness piece comes in, right? We need to add mindfulness into our day to day to be grounded, to really live our best life. And this applies to people of all ages. And there are studies with babies, if they don't get that physical touch from their parent, their mom, their dad, that element of skin touch is so key in terms of developing, the healthy development that they need. There's other studies that have been done with senior citizens, for example, who get hugs regularly, how much better that is for health and well-being. And this applies again to all ages. These are just some examples of certain demographics, but it's applicable throughout the board in terms of children all the way to people in their senior years. So it's really critical that we look at these aspects when it comes to health and well-being. There's technology is a tool. It shouldn't be the end all and be all. It should be used to enhance our well-being, not make it worse, for lack of a better word. And having said that, yes, unfortunately, we are seeing these horrible crises happen in the world, like what happened in Texas, as a result of a disassociation of mental unwell, that disconnect that children might feel, that youth might feel. And unfortunately, because there's so much busy in the world, so many children and youth can get lost in the cracks, if you will, in the whole system. And we really need to come back to being in the present moment as a global society and look at the element of being in oneself, being embodied in the moment, and that mindfulness piece, coming back to that, what that looks like in our lives on a day to day. So yeah, there is so much to discuss when it comes to the well-being of children and youth and how we can support them. And now that we're like looking at the aftermath of, well, gosh, it's like 2.5 years roughly of COVID and the educational system and how we put children online, there's some pros and cons to that. I mean, teachers, I know my fellow colleagues and so forth, they when this first happened, they were like, oh my goodness, I don't know. A lot of them didn't know so many of the platforms they're now using, and now they're
Mhm.
adept at it. They're very comfortable. And that's the other piece, is now when you get comfortable with something, you can actually use it more effectively, more strategically, and get even better results. So there's that element of positivity when it comes to using tech appropriately. When people get comfortable with it, they can use it for even better purposes and get better results. But again, we have to remember it's a tool, and if we're using it consistently, there's such a disconnect that can potentially arise. You discussed gaming as an example. Gaming is, there's a whole science behind gaming. Psychologists have looked at gaming actually, and marketing experts have used gaming as a way to market their services. Media uses gaming psychology, if you will, to gain the attention of their customers. And the truth of the matter is, so many children and youth are exposed to this media. They're exposed to the psychology of gaming, not just in the games that they might play, but also in every element of technology that they're using. So that psychology of gaming can be a deterrent. It can cause elements of disassociation again, and cause unwell. For example, um, the unrealistic expectation of how you should look. A lot of girls, for instance, young girls that I've I've taught, the whole self-esteem piece. When you start to look externally and you start to validate yourself and compare yourself to an influencer on social media, for example, that's an unrealistic expectation, right? I have to look a certain way, I have to behave a certain way, I have to purchase things because the influencer says so. These aren't That's not the real world, right? The real world is coming back to yourself and being really, really happy with yourself, and being happy with what you have around you, and being connected with your family, your friends, nature, and the things that you love to do, the things that you want to explore. That ties into the whole element of wander. I love wander, it's magical. And when we can tie wander into our lives for children, youth, and actually children of all ages, we're creating magic. We're creating the best life possible for ourselves and for our families and for our communities, for that matter.
So what would you, what would you recommend, being in the teaching profession, that school boards need to do in order to implement wonder, magic, connection? I remember, and I think we talked about this before. I remember being in grade 7 in Ottawa, and we had these two teachers, Mr. Hall and Mr. Grew. And we'd go we were in portables. So I was in um, they had the school divided into like sections. So I was like, whatever, whatever, number 2. and we had the good fortune of being in portables. And they would lie us down, and they would lead us in a meditation. And this is like, 1970s, like 72, 73. It's pretty advanced. What would you like to see, if you were to wave a magic wand and you were in an advisory role with the school boards across Canada, what would you like to see them implement so that we move kids away from these, what could be damaging technologies and images and media that they're being exposed to, be it social media, gaming, music, technology, things like that? What would you like to see instituted instead at the schools?
So there are many things that can be easily implemented. And often one of the concerns that comes up is, oh my gosh, how much is this going to cost the school or the board? The beautiful thing about mindfulness is it really is a great effective tool that doesn't have to cost a lot. I mean, you could go down that rabbit hole, and there's lots of great tools out there that you can access, but you don't have to. Meditation is simply, if we teach meditation correctly, is simply just sitting in the moment and learning to become, again, present in the moment. Now, there are various forms of meditation, so I'm going to focus on mindfulness just for a moment.
Mhm.
And I should probably address mindfulness in terms of what it is, for those that might not be clear. Often we talk about mindfulness, it's very trendy. And we think, oh, I know what mindfulness is, but often we don't, because we're not necessarily applying the depth of what mindfulness is on a day to day. There's been research out there that actually shows that people who integrate mindfulness daily are the ones, of course, who get the optimal results. There's also been other research that indicates that if you don't apply mindfulness on the day to day, there could potentially be some harm done to somebody if they're not doing it properly. Not many people are aware of that. And so we need to know what mindfulness is, and we need to really embody what that means in our day to day. So, going back to what mindfulness is, it's simply learning to be almost like a scientist, and that's the beautiful part about it, is being an observer of what's going on in the present moment without judgment, and bringing compassion to that, whatever that might look like. It could be how you're feeling, it could be what you're experiencing physically as well. So what you're experiencing physically, emotionally, spiritually, and just simply watching, observing, noticing, and then going, aha, I've learned something about that, and taking that as a lesson and being able to be more in tune with your body, more in tune with your emotions, more in tune with who you are in this beautiful magical world that we live in. And studies have shown when we practice this on a day-to-day through mindfulness meditations, mindfulness strategies of various kinds, that we are able to better self-regulate. We're able to have deeper, more meaningful connections with others. This is huge when it comes to helping our children and youth live their best life. Because now, when you're happier with yourself, you're a happy human being doing greater things to others. Happy human beings don't like to hurt other people, right?
Exactly. And that's the point, right? So what I'm hearing you say then is that you feel that schools across this country, or even North America for that matter, should institute, um, maybe instead of geography or whatever, I'm not even, you can't even replace that, but they should have a class on mindfulness and meditation and slowing down and connecting with one another, maybe yoga as well. That should be implemented then as part of the curriculum across schools in North America. Would that be, if you were to wave your magic wand, would that be on your wish list or to-do list?
I I would love that. And it would have to be on the regular, right? Not
Mm.
something that we just do a one-off celebration. Oh,
Yeah,
it's a special day today, let's do some mindfulness. That is great. It's a great educational awareness strategy, but it's not going to give you the results you're looking for. It needs to be on a day-to-day with the students. Teachers need to get comfortable with this and see how they can integrate it into their classrooms. Teachers are living in a busy, right? A teaching job is one of the most busy jobs you could possibly imagine, and you're on the go, go, go. So the best way to teach kids is to teach yourself to slow down, right? The same thing with parents. If you're parenting your children, you teach them by example. So the fact that the job is so busy, we need to go one step further. We need to be able to implement a strategy where teachers can lead by example and show the students, okay, it's okay to take pause. This is what it looks like, and have the conversation after you say meditated and you've done a meditation activity, for example. There needs to be a conversation about the experience so that children, youth, teachers as well can integrate the experience and embody. I keep going back to the embodiment piece, where they can embody it into their being, so they know, they experience it, and literally they transform who they are into this new person who just instinctively is more aware of their feelings, their emotions, their experiences. Therefore they're less reactive, therefore they behave in a different way. They're calmer, they're less stressed, they're happier human beings.
and kinder. Are they kinder to their peers?
Yes, there's that compassionate
And
piece.
have they done studies long enough with this to see how they turn out as adults? Like, what being a young kid and teen is not for the faint of heart these days, because there are so many pressures on them. However, how do they turn out as they, become young adults, enter the workforce, that kind of thing? Any studies on that, or
The studies that I'm aware of, and I've actually helped parents with this, parents who have children with ADHD, for example, it's a powerful tool because it helps children who have ADHD, attention deficit disorder, and so on. It helps them self regulate, it helps them have less hyperactivity, it helps them um, develop their executive functioning abilities. What that means is it helps them focus, it helps them plan better, it helps them strategize better. Some examples. These are some of the areas that children with ADHD might have some issues and concerns with. So mindfulness helps them stop, take pause, and learn these strategies, and again, embody the piece of being able to accomplish these tasks with success. And this goes on into adulthood, right? It's not something that just disappears if they continue to practice mindfulness strategies. And they don't have to be like huge onerous tasks. These are simple mindful strategies that we can implement into our day that are easily accessible and easily done. We just need to have a clearer routine. We need to understand how we can integrate it into whatever our life looks like, our schedules. And when we do that, it's powerful. It helps children develop into these amazing, resilient leaders of our world, making huge positive impact. Right? There's less bullying. So there's studies, and we're talking about studies, tons of studies actually done in elementary school as well as in older years, so middle school, even high school, where bullying is decreased. This is huge when there's less bullying, because bullying is a huge problem. And even when you add the element of technology, how the stories out there, some horrible stories of how bullying was used in technology, right, with the social media platforms to harm teenagers. So when mindfulness is brought in, it's shown that this bullying issue decreases tremendously. And again, these high school students are happier, they have better social emotional connections, they're kinder, more compassionate to each other, they're doing nice things for each other as opposed to bullying each other.
Right. So, there's, and then, so with everything that's going on in this, this day and age, I mean, households, parents, we're facing economic pressure, inflation's gone up, gas prices are going up. There's also, uncertainty in the air about, what lays ahead. So you got, now kids are living in that environment at home, and that's there's a bit of, I guess, instability at home, as there is instability in the world these days. And then they're taking that to school with them as well. So talk to us about this idea of how the practice of mindfulness, meditation, breath work, grounding, centering, connection to nature, how that can really affect nature versus nurture.
Great question. There's so many different layers to that.
Ah, your phone's going off.
Oh, is it? Okay. Sorry.
Want to get it, or yeah, we have time. There's no rush here.
I'm surprised you're hearing that. I'm not hearing it. That's interesting.
Yeah, on your. I think it's on
Magical
your desk.
ears.
Oh, Bionic Ear! I didn't tell you about that. When Steve Austin came on the Bionic Man, I went, yeah, that looks good. I'm gonna get one of those Bionic Ears.
Wow, that's impressive.
I think I got it from my mom. She always knew when I came home late.
Oh. the talent, the talent keeps on going.
Yeah, yeah. How do you know I got home at 1 o'clock?
Many magical moments are
I know.
especially our moms, right? When they're yeah, I have stories similar to that with my mom too when I was a teenager. Well, this is a great opportunity to talk about, families, how they can integrate
Hmm.
amazing mindfulness uh, lifestyle in their homes. One of the great things that parents can do is really focus and hone in on family time, right? Um, the reality is most families are so busy and they've got their children scheduled to the tilt with all these different things to do every day. That's part of the stress and anxiety that children are experiencing, right? And then again, the added elements of COVID and so forth, that was a whole new dynamic. But now that we're kind of coming on the other side of COVID, we want to revisit this, more than ever, in terms of how busy do you really need to be as a family? How busy? It's okay to just sit down at a dinner table and just enjoy a meal. That's incredibly mindful. Experience what the meal tastes like, the textures, the smells, the experience of enjoying the bite of food and chewing. Most of us don't spend enough time chewing the food the way we need to even fully digest that food properly for optimal nutrition. It's as simple as that. Like, we need to go back to the basics and go, wait a minute, we need to slow down. And that even means sitting at a meal and slowing down when you eat. studies have been done where when children, when people for that matter, slow down when they eat, they enjoy their food more, they're happier, and they actually, they don't overeat. So it's a great weight management tool because you're working with your body chemistry the way it's meant to, and you're not stress eating, right, which causes that overeating and then all those issues that come with eating disorders, right? So when we're mindful in the with even just eating and spending time with family, we're building those relationships, those connections. We're more joyful. We're able to appreciate like that whole connection of, mom and dad cooking that meal for us as a child and as a youth. This allows them to appreciate their parents even more. Oh my goodness, they actually have time to stop and pause and go, mom and dad did this for me. That's huge. There's a huge significance to that, instead of saying, okay, now you got to go to hockey, now you got to go here, now you got to go there, and then boom, 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 all you're doing is rushing in a car or vehicle going from one place to the other, and really missing out on those amazing opportunities to bond with your children if you're a parent, right?
So,
um,
so
so those are some
connection.
examples.
So I'm hearing, connection is really important, to one another, to your peers, to your family, your parents, siblings. Hmm.
there was there was actually a study done, about how kids were doing during COVID and some of the things that they missed the most. And it was interesting. A lot of kids did say they were stressed and anxious, but some kids were actually experiencing greater joy. And when asked why, they were saying because they had more time to spend with their family. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, no kidding.
Wow.
But then, on a flip side, there was a study of the disruptions that happen at school, for example, affected skill development and optimal growth and wellness. Like because learning was sort of paused or it morphed into online, the academic achievement was really actually negatively affected. And this is a study by Davies and Arini in 2021, especially for learners who were academically vulnerable before the pandemic. Whitley et al. 2021, another study. Children and youth, they said, are now moving and playing less at school and in communities than before the pandemic, which has had immediate collateral consequences on on their development. Talk to us about that importance of play and movement, body
Yeah.
movement. And
Play, movement. I'm going to add the element of laughter as well.
yes, yeah, because I know our mutual colleague Kathy Nesbitt, who
Oh,
teaches laughter yoga, is getting really good results going into schools right now.
yeah, laughter yogurt.
Yoga,
That's
yogurt.
not what I'm
Yeah, yoga.
saying.
Laughter
Laughter
yogurt.
yoga is
I was
incredible.
getting used to strawberry yogurt. Now there's laughter yogurt. Okay.
There you go. We could be onto something there.
Mhm.
Laughter yoga is so powerful. There's so much science out there, and actually, the story behind laughter yoga. It was created by a cardiologist who was trying to find ways to support his patients who just came out of cardiac surgery, because they couldn't, suddenly just go for a run and start strengthening their heart, and they were just had major surgery. So he was like, how can I support these people, in a way that is cardiovascularly, has many benefits to the cardiovascular system, but also brings them more mental well-being. And he created laughter yoga. And because I'm also certified in laughter yoga as well. And so the history behind that's phenomenal. It's such a simple concept, but it's so amazing. Like, it produces all those happy hormones in the brain, which goes into the body, makes you feel better. um, yeah, a really good belly laugh is an incredible healing modality and brings wellness, and that's part of that whole fun piece. And that's the other thing, families and teachers, bring bringing fun into your day to day is being mindful, right? It's being an intentional time that you create, a space that you create that's safe and fun for you and your children, or in a teacher's case, you and your students, that allows them to feel safe, where they can laugh, have joy, and experience wonder. I'm going to go back to that, through activities that allow them to move. So dancing, dance, there's a form of meditation called dancing yoga, right? So where you take, you know, a simple way of that, a simple example of that would be 3 minutes where you stand up and you just move around to a music. It's that simple. This is very a very popular one with youth. They love dancing, most of them. So just easy movements and whatever your body's telling you to do in the moment for 3 minutes, and just letting yourself be immersed in the moment and just embodying the experience, what it feels like to listen to this music and experience how your body wants to move to it. Incredibly healing, incredibly fun. It's great for letting out the stress and anxiety. Another great one is shaking yoga as well. So as you probably know, animals naturally in the wild, when a prey is being hunted by a predator, they are chased and they run away, and then if they survive, which we hope they are incredibly, you know, stressed. They have this huge surge of adrenaline in their
Yeah,
body, which
it's a
allows them,
trauma.
right? Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
trauma. So what they do is they naturally shake it off. So you'll see a deer, for instance, if they've experienced that, they'll suddenly start to shake for several minutes, depending on the situation, but you'll see them shake. And that's how they release that trauma. That's how they release the anxiety and stress
Wow.
and all that of that experience. So there is a form of shaking yoga where you take one limb and you just literally shake. You experience what that feels like, then you take another limb and you do the same, and you take one piece of your body at a time, you shake it out, and then eventually you stand still, you focus on your breath, and you just observe how you're feeling. And a great way to do that is to sort of do a baseline, how you feel before and after.
Mhm.
And so those are some really simple, fun ways to incorporate body movement into a mindful practice. And you see how quickly that can be done, right? Like 3 minutes. You can do that several times a day. It can make a huge impact. This is great for kindergarten kids. It's great for seniors, right? If you're in a wheelchair, you can still move your nose. You can still move your fingers, right? There's certain parts of your body you can still move, and these are activities you can still do. Laughter yoga is also another one that can be done for all ages with all various physical considerations as well. So,
Okay.
yeah.
My final kind of question is, we have an election here in Ontario. So those watching and listening to us today, we're recording on Wednesday, June 1st. June 2nd, tomorrow is election day in Ontario, provincial election. And the school board, you know, the school issues have been a pretty contentious topic for several years, even before this started. There was, uh, issues with labor unrest and curriculum. What would you like, if the new government, whoever gets in, what would you like them to start to adopt in terms of, better enabling and empowering kids to be cool and calm and, and get along with others and not be so aggressive? What would you like to see this new government, do in terms of education down the road?
Ooh, this might be a little
Okay, then be it.
interesting. From a from a leader's perspective, whether you're a parent, teacher, or you're in charge of a whole country, something that we always want to remember is being the example to others. As I mentioned earlier, um, the best way to do something is to be the example, show them that you actually embody what you preach. And social emotional learning is super important for all leaders. And that means really exemplify that in our parliament, really exemplify that in our classrooms, really exemplify that in our communities, in terms of, you know what, let's be revolutionary here. Why not consider a parliament that takes time to meditate before they make decisions? Ah, wow. Use the science. We keep talking about the science in COVID. Well, then let's live up to that. The science shows that when you meditate before you make a decision, you make better decisions. Instead of arguing back and forth, sit down and meditate. do something together. The
Yeah,
Dalai
because when you're
Lama,
arguing, it's your fight and flight,
right?
takes over, not rational, thoughtful, mindful decision making.
Yeah, the Dalai Lama came to Canada a few years back, and he talked about that. It was at a time where we had some duress going on in Canada, and he noticed that. He said that the educational system really needed to be looked at in terms of, less anger, less aggression, and more kindness, compassion, and empathy. And we have to start with the basics. How could we need to be the example? We need to show the example in all we do, and that means our leaders. If you're a leader, whatever job you're doing, you can show those that you serve what that looks like, right? Sit down with those that you serve, meditate, sit down with them, journal, sit down with them, talk about the experiences that you have without judgment. Show more compassion, show more empathy. We haven't even talked about the nature element. We need to take care of our natural environment so that we have more natural environments, so that we can bring our children and youth to those environments so they can heal their traumas. Outdoor education needs to be put on the curriculum. It has to be there. Kids need to be outside, youth need to be outside. They need to have mentors, teach them mindfulness, connection in nature, which is part of what my Global Green Action Project is all about, as you know. A real big mission to connect. That's what my books are about, right? They're all about nature connection and mindfulness for all ages. And when we connect with nature as leaders and show those we serve how that is key, because we're all interconnected, we are making the world a better place in community.
Yeah. Okay. So one last question. I thought that was it. That would have been okay, but you just mentioned community, and there's that old saying that it takes a community to raise a child, and it really does. So from a community point of view, how can business, um, spiritual centers, whatever you believe in, um, other institutions embrace this sort of idea that we've been discussing today?
That is a beautiful question.
Like to lessen, maybe not, maybe like this is what I would do personally. Like I would put a time limit on gaming. I would have more meditation, more mindfulness sort of learning, more connecting to nature, more communication skills. Kids can't talk to each other, they're too busy on their phones. We lost the art of conversation, play, laughter, joy, and institute that more, and limit technology usage. Limit it. It's a privilege. It's not sort of a right. So, what would you like to see then? From a community at play, making better, stronger communities and
I think
environments for our kids to grow in.
I had the fortune before, years before, when I first got out of teachers college, I was able to work in an outdoor ed center. And the gentleman who was in charge of the outdoor ed center had a global school, high school. And one of the components and elements of that school was to have kids from around the world come together in this high school. And it was an amazing thing. And one of the ways you had to graduate was to incorporate humanitarian and environmental work as part of the curriculum. And it was leadership building. So something like that needs to be fostered and needs to be further developed in our communities. And I would love to see all business owners become mentors in projects like that, because we are living in an age where we are so disconnected from nature. I mean, we go for walks, we enjoy our parks, some of us camp, but we're still disconnected because there are plants and animals going extinct on the day to day. That's not mindful. And as a global society, we have to stop and take pause and go, if we don't do something as a collective, we're not going to have an environment to support our children and youth and enjoy the beauty that nature has to offer and how it can heal us, because it's naturally healing. Mother Nature's there so that we aren't stressed and anxious. She's there. She has everything that is needed for us to connect with ourselves. So if we protect Mother Nature, we're protecting ourselves. We are living our best life. So educators need to find ways to spend more time connecting with nature, even if it means bringing a plant into your classroom and showing kids how that plant grows. So important. Parents can do this. Gardening during springtime, that whole element of getting your hands in the dirt, when business owners can be part of these programs. Like there's various programs and initiatives all around our communities where we can be part of that. We can help with animal sanctuaries. We can help with gardening in community, right? Community gardens that help us help others, humanitarian work. All this plays a part in mentoring our children and youth and showing them what true leadership and mindful living looks like. Going that extra step and really connecting and realizing we have a lot of power in community to heal the planet, heal the world. And in return, we're healing ourselves.
Yeah, nicely said. Jennifer, what do you got going on that we need to know about, and where do we connect with you?
Oh, well, the Global Green Action Project is part of an umbrella app that I've created. So I now have an app out there that's free to access with great resources for mindful living, for to support youth and their mentors and people who want some training in terms of just having a mindful life. So it's under the umbrella of Stellar Success Academy. You can look that up. It's on all the app platforms. So feel free to check that out. That's kind of cool. And the Global Green Action Project is, we have a membership. So if people want to learn more about mindful living, they can certainly connect with us as well and gain strategies, learn tools and lesson plans, if you will, as an educator to add to your curriculum, if you will, to further support children and youth. Parents can learn great strategies to bring into their homes, and there's just some great leadership training there as well. Yeah.
I'm so happy you came back, to have you back. I think this is an important topic, with kids, and what not only kids, but what we've all been going through over the past few years. I mean, but our future depends on happy, well-adjusted children, and we need to do as much as we can at home, in school, in community, and business to support that, right? So I really appreciate our chat today. Thank you.
Oh, as I said earlier, just so grateful that you've given me an opportunity to come back again and have this conversation. I so agree. It is so needed for us to carry on the conversation and not forget about it. It's an ongoing conversation. And as the world evolves through this adventure that we've had, there's going to be a lot more to converse about as time goes on. And we need to keep tweaking it as we go.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think we're going to solve it all in one day, but we can make little incremental steps, right? And that's the goal. Thank you so much, Jen. And thank you for watching and listening. And we'll be back with another episode of Rise in a week or two. I'm taking a couple weeks off. I'm working on a summit, and we'll be back after that summit is complete. All right, so take good care.